The Pentagon just failed its financial audit for the 8th year in a row. That means they cannot fully account for where their money and assets are. Not complicated, basic bookkeeping. Now, here's the crazy part. Despite failing again, Congress just approved a nearly $1 trillion military budget. That is the largest defense budget in U.S. history. The audit found dozens of serious accounting problems. Trillions of dollars worth of assets were completely unverifiable. They, quote, plan to pass an audit by 2028. That would be over 10 years of failed audits. Imagine if you failed an audit 10 times. They'd fire you or you'd be in jail. And it looks like the Somalians came to America, committed fraud. They learned the game from people like Trump and people in the government. 8 years of failed audits. Comment down below what you think. Follow to stay in the loop.
People are just simply not going to pay their taxes anymore. We have seen some of the most egregious cases of fraud, from $19 billion for daycares to the Pentagon failing its 8th audit in a row. And guess what? No one gets arrested, nothing happens, and we just keep paying insane amounts of taxes to everybody. And that's in Minnesota. Imagine with New York, with California, imagine the fraud that's going on and the tax dollars we are using to send money to everybody else. So people are tired of it. They're done paying their taxes and they want things fixed. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene said, don't pay your taxes until we figure out what's going on with government spending and fraud. So we have a compilation of everyone who's joining together and not paying their taxes. Is this going to work out? Are we all going to get arrested and audited by the IRS? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure. Americans are tired of paying way too much in tax and to see the money wasted.
After all this talk about Somalians and millions of our taxpayer dollars being wasted, I truly think Americans are fed up at this point. To the point now where they're talking about literally going on a tax strike. Listen, I'm all for it. Because look around you, everything is fraud. Trump's met with Netanyahu already for the 5th time, while we keep sending billions to Ukraine and Israel, and my generation can't buy a house. Like ever. And these boomers will laugh in your face and say, work harder. The GOP would rather raise the retirement age to 70 than just enforce immigration law. And before anyone says anything, I voted for Trump. I supported him. It's about to be the end of 2025, and here's what people are noticing. No high-profile arrests, no mass deportations, Epstein files redacted, crime and inflation is out of control. Americans are told by the president that we don't have talent while H-1B visas are replacing us, funding wars we didn't vote for, and we get mocked by a country the size of New Jersey in the Middle East daily. We've had Trump for 1 full year in office. So yeah, people are talking about tax strikes, because taxes are a scam. If you don't pay, they take everything from you, your assets, your freedom, your life. But if you steal millions, if you traffic people, if you commit fraud, nothing happens. Americans are tired of being law-abiding for a country that doesn't enforce its own laws. It doesn't even matter who's in office anymore. Both sides are owned, both sides are playing us, and they're still counting on us to not do anything about it. That's why they're sloppy now, that's why they don't care, and we keep paying taxes to PDFs. Not anymore.
Just when you thought you've heard it all, people, so the USA collects $2.4 trillion in income tax every single year. So this past week, we have had several experts, even members in Washington, D.C., say that the amount of fraud each year the U.S. pays out equals about $1.5 trillion. And what we've seen out of SNAP benefits, Medicaid, all of the healthcare stuff, Minnesota and beyond, I would say that actually probably could be true, which means that only $900 billion would need to be collected if you take out all of the fraud. Do you know what that means? That means essentially every single American making under $500,000 per year could pay no income tax, and that would satisfy that $900 billion. And then here is the chart if you want to take a look at that of our income tax. And just to put this in further perspective, in the year 1913, we didn't pay any income tax. There was no income tax. That did not exist. Fast forward to 2025, and we're paying $2.4 trillion every year in income tax, and there could be $1.5 trillion of that we pay in fraudulent payments alone.
Has anybody else started to reach their breaking point or a boiling point? So this is starting to look like a country that I am no longer proud to have served. I've been working my entire adult life, and I have paid half or more than half back to the government in some way, shape, or form in taxes for the past 30 years. And if you don't believe me, look up everything that you have that is taxed. State income tax, federal income tax, property taxes, payroll taxes, Medicare taxes, Medicaid taxes, sales taxes. Everything is taxed. Everything. And we have a political apparatus where half of them say that if you don't keep us in power, we will steal from you so that we can import people that will. So shut up and go back to work. And another side of the aisle that is either in on it or is totally complete chicken shit and won't do anything about it and won't even try to actually represent the people that vote for them. Is anybody else getting to a point where we feel like we cannot vote our way out of this? Where does that leave us? Because nothing is going to happen about the fraud. Nothing. All of the fraud that Elon Musk and Doge exposed, the Republican Congress put it on the back burner and refused to fucking vote on it. Turn around to the American voter that put them in power and extended one of these. It doesn't matter what we do. This situation is completely freaking unsustainable. Totally and completely unsustainable. It's a waste of time to vote, and it's a waste of energy to pay taxes so that we can give it to people that are going to steal from us. And then we can send it to other countries that hate us. And we can send it to people in the European Union that look down their nose at the American worker and say, good little bitch, go back to work. It's putting us in a helpless situation. And I don't think the people in Washington living in that bubble realize the anger that is fuming outside of the borders of that city. And I am not interested in watching another fucking theatrical congressional hearing where a couple of ballsy Republicans bitch out a fucking corrupt leftist and then nothing happens. Accountability and a fucking tax strike is what needs to happen.
The conversations that are bubbling up right now because people are furious about where their tax dollars are going. And this isn't just coming from fringe voices. We're talking about reporters, influencers, comedians, and even politicians openly calling for a nationwide tax strike. That alone should tell you just how heated this has become. People are starting to ask some very basic questions. Why are we paying taxes when our money appears to be going to fraudulent programs and third world migrants instead of the people who earned it? Instead of bettering just everyday American society, instead of making our cities safer, instead of making us safer, instead of making our lives better, improving our lives, why is it that you can walk up to a childcare center that looks obviously fraudulent, expose it to tens of millions of people?
Hey, y'all. So I haven't posted in a while, but I wanted to jump on here because there's this movement growing of people that are just fed up with the fraud, waste, and abuse that we're seeing in the federal government and where our tax dollars are going. And the fact that we're being taxed to death and our Congress doesn't represent us at all. They represent the illegals, right? We can't afford housing. They get free housing. We can't afford childcare. They get free childcare. We can't afford insurance. They get free government insurance. We can't qualify for any of this stuff, but we're the ones paying for all of it. And this movement is to just basically go on tax strike. We're not going to fund it. And if you look, it's happened in the past and it's actually viable. It works. And I mean, if it's something like 10% of the taxpayers just don't pay their taxes, the whole machine comes to a halt. And that is too many people to prosecute. They can't go after you all. And so I don't know how to do it on TikTok, but over on my Twitter or my X page, if you go to my profile, it's the same as on here. It's at NWROZIER. I'll put it in the comments. Go over to X, go to my profile, and the top post is pinned is the declaration of intent here. Why we're going to strike on our taxes and what we expect from our government. Like, this is ridiculous. We're not playing this game anymore. And we need somebody, honestly, with a platform, like someone to come in and organize this. That document that I put together is a starting point. Definitely we can add to it, edit it, do what we need to do, but it's a starting point that solidifies kind of the idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it, because it's getting ridiculous. So we need to spread the word and get somebody with some kind of influence and clout to get on board and lead this thing. And we also need lawyers, to be honest with you. they're going to try to prosecute somebody. They're going to try to make an example out of somebody. We need, since we're not paying our taxes, we can donate to a legal defense fund. And we get some lawyers on board that are willing to support the cause, and a legal defense fund to support those who they try to make an example of. And if you look at history and how this works, it'll go to court. And if we win a couple of these court cases, now there's precedent. And that precedent sets us up for all the future ones to say, nope, in so-and-so v. so-and-so, this, applied. So we can't, there's no case here. And it goes away. And they will be forced to listen to us. So join the movement. Go to my Twitter or go to my X at NWROZIER. That pinned post is our declaration of intent. And just start sharing that and get the word out, because we are patriots. We built this country. We are currently the ones keeping this country afloat. And our government is doing everything they can do to steal it right off underneath us. Do not let them make you feel like you're a criminal or that you're doing anything wrong because you want to protect what's yours. You want to protect your heritage. It's time for the government to do its job and represent the people, or we're not paying their bills anymore.
As an assisted living facility, and it receives a lot of taxpayer money. Here in Minnesota, the number of people getting help in assisted living facilities is up, double the growth of other programs. But here's the kicker. The rate of payment in this assisted living space is 10 to 15 times the growth in other programs. Hi. So we pulled the data on assisted living facilities in the Minneapolis area. Minneapolis, as you might expect, has a lot, 169. St. Paul, with a population of 307,000, has 83. But Brooklyn Center, 30,000 population, has 106. And Brooklyn Park, population of 84,000, has 181, more than Minneapolis, a city 5 times its size. But this assisted living facility puts this all in perspective. It's owned by a man indicted for laundering $1 million in the Feeding Our Future scam. He's Gandhi Mohammed, now Gandhi Abdi Kadai, and his LLC owns the homes. His wife runs the assisted living facilities, and the state is continuing to pay as he awaits his trial. Okay. We went to each of them.
We're curious because the man who owns this building was indicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal. Did you know that?
No.
Don't know that?
No. You think what?
Do you know the Feeding Our Future scandal? This the scam that was, there's all these indictments related to false, billing on feeding children.
No, that's not true.
That it's not true?
That's not true. The way I know that, no.
These assisted living facilities received over $2.3 million in state money last year alone. A Minnesota Reformer article says he has been paid a whopping $49 million since 2016.
How is it possible that this person who's been indicted in Feeding Our Future also is still collecting checks from the state, running these assisted living centers with his wife?
I honestly have no idea. It seems like the most basic due diligence would have been to run a check of all the people indicted in Feeding Our Future and then make sure they're not getting paid from other state programs. And at least in this case, and I've heard perhaps in others, they didn't do that.
State Representative Kristen Robbins is the chair of the House Fraud and Oversight Committee here.
So this person owns assisted living facilities, and his wife runs the service provider part of it. So he owns the property. One of the properties was purchased with the same shell company he used to money launder in Feeding Our Future. And now that same shell company has been used to buy a new assisted living facility property. It's unconscionable that they haven't done the most basic due diligence to cross-check that Feeding Our Future defendants aren't getting additional state money.
Now, we reached out to this man and his wife, and we got to hear back. We also reached out to the Department of Human Services here, and they gave us a statement. In part, it basically says, ultimately, they can't cut funding from this guy because he is simply a landlord, essentially because his wife runs the services for these assisted living facilities, essentially kind of passing the buck.
Yeah, Rich, when you think about the potential money that was squandered instead of helping people that need it, it really is so hard to comprehend. Excellent investigative reporting. Rich McHugh on the ground in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
I really hope people get mad about what is happening with the Somalia childcare fraud stuff. I have $60,000 in an account right now for taxes. And it's like I got lucky this year through TikTok. I made some money and I tied 30% of it. I put the other in savings and then I put the other in the tax account. Found out that I probably needed to be putting 50% back. So I started adding more to it so that I could buffer it up. And the reason why is because, you made a little bit more than the threshold, so now you get to pay 50 instead of 30%. I don't know taxes. I don't know how much I'll owe, but I put it back just in case. My whole point, though, is I probably will never make this again in my life. And what I could do with that $60,000 to $70,000, I could take that, I could pay on my house, I could use that and buy another rental property, I could do something, but no, I'm going to pay taxes. And then to turn around and find out that that is where my taxes go. Like, I'm a hardworking American. I did something this year that could benefit me for the rest of my life. It's in a little account and it's going to Uncle Sam, and this is what they did with it. And I am furious. I have thought about this for a long time. I know no one feels sorry for me because I did good this year and I made the money, and I get it. But whenever that happens to regular people who live paycheck to paycheck, and then all of a sudden you get like a windfall, you still can't catch a break. You still can't catch a break. Like, it just does not make sense. The whole taxes that we have on everything, and everyone just takes it. They just take it. And I have to take it too because I'm one voice. And unless a bunch of people want to get mad with me and finally stand up and say, we're not taking it anymore, there's nothing I can do about it. So I don't know, but if anybody wants to stand up, I'm ready.
All of this fraud being uncovered in Minnesota has taught me one thing. It's that we pay way too dang much in taxes. Because what do you mean $9 billion with a B, probably more than $9 billion of federal funds have been billed out and paid for services that were just simply never provided. And it probably would have gone on for much longer had one person, one man, a 23-year-old, not taken it upon himself to do the job that so many investigative journalists or reporters, or heck, the government for that matter, are supposed to be doing. So that's it. That's the TikTok. We pay too dang much in taxes.
Guys, we have U.S. representatives calling for tax strikes now. We got more massive platforms like Sean Ryan saying, wouldn't that be something? Tax strike is in, guys. We are not paying fucking taxes, at least until shit gets fixed in this country. And I see a lot of people who are talking about how they're afraid to go to jail. They're afraid to have their wages garnished. Duh. Do you think you're going to have a revolution without any potential for recourse? Do you think you're going to fight corruption? There'd just be no risk. It is your fear that allows them to control you. And guess what? If you want to be free, you have to be willing to go to fucking jail. You have to be willing to die on that fucking hill. I see people talking about, yeah, but what if I don't get my Social Security when I get older? That is literally the fucking point, is to not be dependent on the government. If we quit paying taxes and we force their hand, and the government is no longer spending billions and billions of dollars on corrupt programs, funneling money back into their own pockets, into the pockets of their rich friends, then guess what? We have a much more prosperous country. And it's a lot easier for you to create a future for yourself where you don't have to depend on Social Security just to retire. But freedom don't come free. And you have to be willing to be scrappy. And you have to be willing to deal with whatever problems might come your way as a result of standing the fuck up. Guess what? This probably gets rough for a little while. Because do you think all these fucking lizards in office want their money supply cut off? Do you think they want to be held accountable? Guys, this is the time. There is so much support from the biggest mouthpieces in the country. There is so much momentum. This is literally the moment where we can say, we know for a fact that if we pay taxes into the system, it is funding corruption, and we will not be complicit. Mass noncompliance is the only way. Do your fucking thing.
They're like Oprah over here with your money. You get $1 billion, you get $1 billion, you get $1 billion. The Pentagon just failed its 8th financial audit in a row. Guys, since the establishment of the audit in 2018, the Pentagon has yet to pass a financial audit. But don't worry, nobody panic. They plan to be able to pass an audit by 2028. But don't worry, if you're a small business owner and you have a tiny infraction on your tax return, you could be fined penalties. Don't worry, guys, the Pentagon will get it together by 2028. New Year's goals.
These people are bleeding us dry. They're skating criminal charges for laundering the GDP of Somalia to Al-Shabaab. So here's something Trump can do to break the system. And I'm proposing a really bold solution here that he can do with a stroke of a pen. And no judge or even Congress can stop him, as we found out from Joe Biden. Trump comes out tomorrow and preemptively pardons every American who's been a citizen and a resident of the United States for more than 10 years for not paying their federal taxes in 2026. And he should do it with Mike Johnson and John Thune standing right next to him.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T.
I've been seeing a bunch of posts about people saying they're not going to pay their federal taxes this year because the Pentagon misplaced $800 billion. They failed their yearly audit for the 7th year in a row, and like all the fraud that's been discovered in Minnesota. I'm going to keep my 2 cents to myself on whether I'm going to pay or not. But I want to give you a brief backstory on where these taxes even started and how far they've come, because it has been a snowball effect that's just gotten out of hand. So first, let's start with federal income tax. The first federal income tax was in 1860 to 1872, just to help with the Civil War efforts. And once those debts were paid, they got rid of it. It was supposed to be temporary, and it was. Then in 1894, they tried to do another income tax, which lasted 1 year, but the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. Then in 1913, we passed the 16th Amendment, which is the income tax that we have today. The max you were allowed to be taxed was 7%. The average tax was 1%, and it was 6% if you made over $50,000. And just for reference, $50,000 in 1913 would be like $1.7 million today. Another temporary tax that the federal government put in place was the estate tax. It went into place in 1862 to fund the Civil War, and it was repealed in 1870. And this tax was only for 0.75% if you were giving it to direct relatives. It went up to 5% depending on how far down the family tree you were giving away your money or property. The current estate tax that we have in America goes up to 40%. We went from 5 to 40. We started a war over a 3% tax on tea. I just feel like we're the most docile people. There's no accountability for our government to actually show us how are you spending our money. We're sending billions of dollars overseas. Something has got to change. So I'm not saying I'm not paying, but they can't arrest everybody.
Been seeing all over Twitter today, a bunch of people are like, I'm not filing taxes this year. It never ceases to amaze me how stupid some people are. Because, one, why are you admitting that on social media? And two, the IRS doesn't work in real time. Like, they're going to let you owe them a good tens of thousands of dollars through taxes, and then they're just going to hit you up like, yeah, we're going to garnish all your paychecks until we're whole, or they're going to bring you to jail. Neither of which are good options. So, I mean, go for it. Don't file your taxes. I think they're stupid too, but I'm going to keep paying them because it's dumber to not. And if you're fine with the going to jail option, that doesn't mean that they're not going to take your house or your car or any other assets that you have and then say, hey, we're even. Like, don't fall into the trap of people that are just yapping on Twitter. That's basically the message.